Senator the Honorable Dr. Ralph Balgobin, Chairman, Quicksilver Convenience Limited and Board Member at the Arthur Lockjack Graduate School of Business, Professor Miguel Carrillo, Executive Director and Professor of Strategy at the Arthur Lockjack Graduate School of Business, Mr. Inderjit Singh, Chairman of PowerGen and our Chief Sponsor for today's events, members of the PowerGen Management Team, Ms. Christine Thompson, Executive Director, Carousel, and Board Member, Arthur Lockjack Graduate School of Business, Mr. Dave Ramkisoon, Chairman, Electrical Industries Limited, Mr. Dax Driver, Chairman, Economic Development Board and CEO of the Energy Chamber, Dr. Ricky Permanan, Executive Director, Economic Development Board, Mr. Chanka Sitaram, Chairman, the Council of Competitiveness and Innovation, Ms. Karen de Montbrun, Member of the Council for Competitiveness and Innovation, Mr. Michael Anisette, President, Seamen and Waterfront Trade Union, other distinguished ladies and gentlemen, members of the media, members of the faculty, students, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the launch of the Global Competitiveness Report for 2012-2013. The title of this year's report is Strengthening Recovery by Raising Productivity. The Global Competitiveness Report 2012-2013 comes at a time when the outlook for the world economy is once again fragile. Global growth remains low for the second year running, as has been shown by the results from the large emerging economies and key advanced economies, which are both showing expected slow growth in 2012-2013. Further to this, it is compounded by the sovereign debt crisis and the danger of banking meltdown in peripheral Eurozone countries. For more than 3 decades, the World Economic Forum have produced the annual Global Competitiveness Report, which have studied and benchmarked the many factors underpinning national competitiveness. Today, we join the rest of the world as we present the results for the 2012-2013 GCR, after which we will initiate the debate. Let me now invite Dr. Ralph Balgobin, Chairman of Quicksilver Consulting Limited and member of the board of the Arthur Lockjack Graduate School of Business, who will present the results for the 2012-2013 edition of the Global Competitiveness Report. Dr. Balgobin.
A key insight from this year's report, as you will see shortly, is that Trinidad and Tobago has a productivity problem. Trinidad and Tobago is 50. I must emphasize here, before we go much further, that this is an apolitical examination of the performance and the potential of Trinidad and Tobago. I say that because many countries, including ours, aggressively consume the results of competitiveness studies and attempt to use those as a scorecard to measure government performance. And there is some merit in that, but not entirely, because it's, while governments determine competitiveness in large part by virtue of their ability to build enabling environments, it is not intended that the survey and its results have a political connotation, because as you will see, some of the issues that you're addressing actually span political administrations, and it takes a very long time to address. The results of studies of competitiveness, such as the one we're going to look at now, are really given a lot of attention in environments where no other scorecard exists. It is important for us to understand what we mean when we say that we're competitive or we're not competitive. And when we talk about competitiveness, we're talking really about institutions, policies, and factors. You are only as competitive as your productive capacity allows you to be. The link has been established between productivity and high and rising standards of living, high and rising levels of income, and these two things have been established. There's a correlation that has been established in research that suggests that countries such as these are very good at attracting and retaining foreign direct investment and foreign participation in the economy to the benefit of the local economic space. So when we're talking about productivity, we're really talking about competitiveness in that productivity allows you to be competitive. To be competitive as a society, you have to have competitive firms. And these competitive firms actually need an enabling environment which allows them to spread their wings and to do what entrepreneurs and investors do best. So the idea being, if you are able to create an enabled environment, you create the conditions for entrepreneurship and entrepreneurial life to flourish. And the fundamental assumption about that is that while you can measure the performance of whole economies as national entities, competition and global competition in particular really happens at the level of the firm. So it's firms that compete, not nations. The big change in how we measure and assess competitiveness really has to do with the pillars that we think underpin competitiveness and a competitive society and economy. And that's important because, as you'll see from both lists, the 2008 and the 2012 list, while there are some things there that affect the economy, there are things in there that really address very squarely the state of the society. So the socio-economic reality becomes very important when you're thinking about competitiveness. It's important to understand that the pillars are tied. They're not independent of each other. There's a very significant codependence. What's happening with Trinidad and Tobago? The first thing to recognize is that, well, we rank 84th. We are viewed very much as a transition economy that is moving from stage 2, which is efficiency-driven, to stage 3, which is innovation-driven. We're very much in a transition mode. So innovation and productivity are becoming very important for the development and maintenance of our standard of living. Having said that, it is important to note that our score has not moved for 3 years. That is, we're scoring on average 4 out of 7. 4 out of 7 is generally viewed as average in all of the competitiveness results. Our basic requirements look good, but our institutions are ranked poorly relative to our overall ranking and standing in the results. Our goods market and our labor market also do not fare well. In terms of institutions, investor protection, we do very well. Judicial independence also ranks very well. We rank 47 out of 144 countries. So our judiciary fares very well. We do appear to have a very significant trust issue in terms of, as a society, engaging with the political class. And so we're ranking 104th out of 144 countries for public trust in politicians, and 109th for government favoritism. Our trust in politicians is low. And that is reinforced by the view, with some evidence, that government officials make decisions in a way that is not always transparent.
Part of this process of measuring our competitiveness is about debating the issues surrounding competitiveness. And we'll start that debate today with a panel discussion, and we have gathered a number of respected experts in various areas of business and policy and academia. We have Karen de Monbreau, member of the Council for Competitiveness and Innovation. Our second panelist is Mr. Dave Ramkisoon. He's an executive chairman of the EIL Group of Company. We also have with us Dr. Dax Driver, who has been the Chief Executive Officer of the Energy Chamber for the last 7 years. We also have Ms. Christine Thompson, an independent consultant in the area of project development, strategy, merger and acquisition and finance, with a focus in the energy sector. We have also Mr. Michael Anisette. He is the president of NATUC, which represents 18 trade unions, and president of the Seamen and Waterfront Workers Trade Union. Also joining our panelists would be Dr. Ralph Balgobin, who is an expert in corporate turnaround. He is the immediate past executive director of the Arthur Lockjack Graduate School of Business. The panel would be moderated today by Professor Miguel Carrillo, Executive Director and Professor of Strategy of the Lockjack School of Business. Professor Carrillo comes with vast experience in academia and industry, with his main area of focus being innovation and strategy.
Well, the World Bank actually is predicting even a further slowdown in economic growth in some of the most important economies in the world, including China, India, and obviously all Europe. I think that we will as well experience a very important slowdown from Brazil as well.
A slowdown in Europe doesn't necessarily have to be bad for Trinidad and Tobago in the pure sort of maths of the economy, depending on what it means for energy. So from the Economic Development Board's point of view, we're trying to say what we need to do to have a more sustainable economy is to diversify our exports and to see what are the markets we're going to be able to export into, so we're not relying upon these 10 commodities. So what are the specific markets? Well, it varies depending on what is the value chain or the cluster from which we're looking to develop. So some of them, we're looking around the energy sector cluster, moving away from the commodities to the energy services. There you have markets close by, Suriname, Guyana, French Guiana, which are good potential growth markets for us, and then we have good markets in Africa. If you're looking at tourism, obviously that's a very difficult one if you have a slowdown in Europe, because it's linked straight into the tourism sector. If you look at the creativity again, those are things which slowdowns in Europe and North America could affect. But I think it's such a niche product that we have anyway, that I don't think just the overall economic slowdown necessarily affects it badly. So I think there's still a lot of opportunities within the areas which we're looking at. And what we need to do is just get the right policies in place and begin to concentrate on these exports, which we haven't really ever done as a country. Concentrate on what is it we're going to sell to the world, not just to CARICOM. You can turn things around with the right government action. This is for upstream deep water energy. 2006, we put out 11 blocks for bid, and we got one bid which was then withdrawn. Yesterday they closed, there were 6 blocks out, we had 12 bids in it, because we did it differently, because we changed the fiscal terms, because we got better data to the companies, and we went out and marketed aggressively. So if we do that with every sector, we do it in energy because we know how to do it. We've got to do the same lessons applied to other sectors, and we'll be able to attract the investments into them.
In order for us to grow, most likely we will grow by doing business abroad, more so than just doing business in our local market. So from your perspective, what are the key steps our country must follow to increase our access to new markets and to be a more open economy?
We must remember, first of all, that Trinidad and Tobago, when we enter into trade negotiations with other countries, we don't enter on a one-on-one basis. We are part of the CARICOM group. We must also remember that we enjoy in most of our trade agreements MFN status, most favored nation status. Therefore, according to WTO, we are not really operating on a level playing field. That brings us to the theory that opening our markets will increase our trade. And several studies have been done, particularly in small economies like ours, some emanating out of Bolivia, for example, but this is not necessarily the case. We have seen in Trinidad where opening up of the markets, if not regulated internally by proper regulatory bodies, leads to a flooding of our markets with goods that should not be coming in. If our port and customs procedures are improve radically, it is something that is visible. It is what I call low-hanging fruit. It is something that will be out there that obviously is going to affect our ratings in this particular area. My next passion, our bill for public procurement pass through Parliament, we would also see some gain in certain areas. And our last point, which brings me